if you can focus in on a small market and understand who you want to serve, that's going to open up doors. And so do I think branding is more important, or do I think finding leads? If you're just trying to find leads that are general, you're really wasting your time, in my opinion. You need to say, who is the type of person or the type of people that are here? And more importantly, who are the type of people that are not here? If you can define that, that's matching your brand, but it's also helping you with finding leads. Of course, you can't have a business if you don't have leads, but you want to have qualified leads. By the time they're calling you and they're wanting to work with you, you should have a really high conversion rate.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Fitness Founders Podcast. I'm Kevin Mannion, VP Marketing here at Glofox. This week I talk with Joe Sanok, who's an entrepreneur and consultant who helps small businesses start, grow, scale, and ultimately succeed. In this episode, we talk about transitioning from being an employee to owning your own business, finding a work-life balance as a busy entrepreneur, and knowing when is the right time to take your business to the next level. Let's get started. Joe Sanok, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Kevin.
It's great to have you here, Joe. Well, let's get started. Tell me a little bit about what you do and your background.
Yeah, I get to help small businesses get bigger, mostly in the healthcare space, but business is business. It applies across the board. So I know your audience will get a lot out of this, but most of my work is helping people that are starting, growing, and scaling a healthcare private practice. So that could be a counseling practice. It could be a massage therapy practice, chiropractors. But then I also help them get to the point where they're scaling outside of their own time to launch big ideas like podcasts, e-courses, keynotes, TED Talks, things like that.
Tell me a little bit around people that are just getting started with their business, very first steps. What are the 2 or 3 mistakes that you see them making?
Yeah, so every phase of starting a business is going to have different assets and different purposes during that time. And so when you're at the startup phase, usually time is your biggest asset because on day one, very few people are lucky enough to have a whole client load of people that want to work with them. So really time is on your side. It's when you can be super personalized. You can create your biggest fans of your business. It's when you can go above and beyond in some ways that when you're scaling and growing rapidly later on that you just aren't able to do. And so really that's a time that you want to be listening to those first early adopters, the very first people that join your business, the very first members, the very first people that just are raving fans for you. You want to listen to them and get to know them so that you can replicate the way that you speak to them. Because the pains that they come with and the way they describe their pains is great copy for your website, how you talk about your business, how you explain the transformation that happens. When you're first getting going, you want to have a basic direction of where you're headed, basic framework. But a lot of people spend so much time on creating the product that they don't listen to the audience. And so I would really encourage people at the beginning, don't get too hung up on your exact model, unless it's an established model or a franchise model you're buying into where there's just an established model that works. If you're starting your business, you really want to give it your best shot, but then really listen to your audience and see where there's opportunity to have things that they're asking for.
Okay, so you think that sometimes at the very early days, this is the time when you can learn most and put in some of the pieces that will be the foundations of your business in the future.
Yeah, and you really want to look at, okay, I'm adding hats. At the very beginning, you're probably going to wear lots of hats. You may be your own bookkeeper, your own accountant, your own payroll, all of those hats. But as we look at going into the kind of growth and scaling phases, we really want to look at intentionally taking those hats off because early on, yes, you have the time for that. And maybe you also don't have the startup capital to invest in all the things to be a well-oiled machine of a business. But as soon as you can, you want to rapidly start taking those hats off. So that could be outsourcing your phones to a virtual assistant that maybe you have an agreement that they're only paid for when they're on the phone so that you're not fielding those calls. Instead, you're working with clients, working in your gym, you're making sure that you're out there networking and marketing in a way that uses your time best. And so initially, it may be that kind of onboarding of new people, you outsource that to someone else because that's not necessarily going to be the best use of your time if you can create a system. And then you're going to want to continue to look at what are the tasks that really are the best use of my time. And then in doing that, you're going to start to shed all of those other tasks that aren't the best use of your time.
So I think a lot of our listeners, may be making or may have made the leap from being maybe a personal trainer or working as an employee somewhere to suddenly becoming a manager of a business or a manager of other trainers. What would you say are the biggest challenges somebody like this faces in making that transition?
Yeah, I think that when you just work for someone else, you can show up, you can do the work. Usually you'll have gone into that work because of your own personal passion. And so staying connected to that is really important, but also recognizing that that one-on-one or individual work really can't be where you stay completely. And so understanding, well, is it that to stay connected to that work, I want to still maintain a handful of clients that I'm going to work with, and being able to really develop your own leadership skills within that role. That transition from just showing up and being the physical trainer to work with your own clients versus managing other people is a much different skill set, and it's not for everyone. And I think we often feel like there's this road that we're told that we need to take to be successful. And if you find yourself in those roles and you're not enjoying it, maybe you want to kind of transition differently or find a different model. But if you're in it and you enjoy it, you want to first start with, what are the things that I need to grow quickly? And so probably management skills. How do you inspire groups of people? How do you set a vision that unifies them, even though they're maybe working kind of individually with people or in smaller groups with people? Creating a culture is really important in a setting like that. You look at some of the most successful kind of gyms that are out there, they all have a specific culture. They have a kind of person that they try to attract. And that culture has its own language. It has its own feeling of its own tribe. People feel connected there. I think about where my wife works out. She's been doing it 3 days a week for almost a year. And they have a great vibe for her where she feels like she's a part of something. And it's for stay-at-home moms that want to go back, and work out. And it's for these guys who have never really been fit, but they're able to do that in a way where it feels really like, wow, I didn't know what I was made of here. They've developed that tribe for their group. And so what does that look like, in this new setting as a leader? You're going to set that tone. And if you don't set a tone, it's going to happen, but it may not happen in the way that you want it to. So I would say really be intentional in kind of what's the language, what's the culture that you're developing there, and grow through your own learning of inspiring other people.
And do you think these, initial steps of leadership are something you can learn or something that certain people are born with?
I think we all are born with certain skills, and our families of origin are going to give us certain skill sets. So for example, my dad was a clinical psychologist. And so some of my earliest memories were having a star chart so that I would go to bed on time. And then when I got enough stars, then, I earned a little toy sword. And so for me, goal setting and achievement was very much what I as a child felt, as love and acceptance and part of my family culture. So when it comes to setting a goal, it's really easy for me to set a goal and achieve it. But I probably missed out on some of the heart side of it. And so I need to develop that empathy for other people. So we all have our skill sets that we're born with or that were developed through our family of origin and our life experiences. But to your question, do I think that it's something that can be taught? I do think that it can be taught, but it's most important to understand what's driving that success in your business and in your career. So is it that, hey, I just want to make more money? Well, why do you want to make more money? What's that going to do for you that you can't have now? And how do we actually have that be something that's good for the world, that's good for you and good for your clients? Rather than just, I just want to make more money so I can have a fancy car. Or is it that you're passionate about people that have had trouble with health issues and you think that working out is going to really help them? And, or is it when I went through cancer, for example, there's a workout program locally here that people that have cancer can go through twice a week so they can be around other people that are doing that. And it's free of charge. The community, there's a grant that funds it. So that's their mission and it all aligns. And so I think having a sense or even just a general direction, you don't have to have it all figured out or know the meaning of life, but to say, why am I spending my life, my one life, all of this time, all of these resources that I have on this? Each one of us chooses to do the work that we do for a reason. And if we do it just by default, that's not going to make us happy entrepreneurs. Instead, we're going to just kind of bump along and not really be intentional about what we want to do with our lives. So thinking about why you're drawn to this work and you're choosing to spend the bank of your time of your life here and doing this and for what purpose, I think that's going to help you become the best leader.
Got it. That makes sense. So you've touched a little bit on culture and the brand that you create. Some people say getting leads and more sales is the number one priority for starting a business and that the brand will follow on, whereas others say that getting this brand in place is essential for your long-term growth. What do you think?
I would start with people will always assume that a specialist can be a generalist, but they won't assume that a generalist will be a specialist. And I say that because if you figure out a small market, that really needs you and your perspective, they are going to pay more, they're going to work harder, and they're going to talk about you more than if you just say, I help everybody. There's a fancy French restaurant. I can see it out my window. I'm in downtown, northern Michigan town. There's a fancy French restaurant. If I went in there and I said, as my wife and I are on a date, I don't feel like having French food tonight. I want a really good burger. And it wasn't on the menu. And I didn't get kicked out by the chef. If they made me that burger, it would probably be one of the most delicious burgers I've ever had. They'd probably use like smoked Gouda. They would, put some spinach in it or some fancy mushrooms. So the specialist can become the generalist. But if I went to a regular burger shop and I said, hey, I want some creme brulee, that would not be good creme brulee. So if you can focus in on a small market and understand who you want to serve, that's going to open up doors. And so do I think branding is more important, or do I think finding leads? If you're just trying to find leads that are general, you're really wasting your time, in my opinion. You need to say, who is the type of person or the type of people that are here? And more importantly, who are the type of people that are not here? If you can define that, that's matching your brand, but it's also helping you with finding leads. Of course, you can't have a business if you don't have leads, but you want to have qualified leads. By the time they're calling you and they're wanting to work with you, you should have a really high conversion rate. And so if your first month, for every call, every other person is coming in, okay, your conversion rate's 50%. Okay, well, how do we get that to 60%? How do we test that? How do we do some A/B testing in regards to how we talk to people? How do we offer maybe a free program or a low-cost program and analyze these things so that we get the right people in, and people self-select out. They don't even call you if they're not going to be a good fit for you. That somehow you've created a brand and a culture that excludes as much as it includes. That's how you build a successful practice and a successful gym.
So you're advising all sorts of businesses, local businesses, on marketing. If we focus a little bit more on the lead generation, what are people doing now to generate leads? Are they, say, writing blog posts? Are they active on social media? Have they got sophisticated paid ad campaigns? What's the most effective channels right now?
I'll tell you what I see people doing and then how they miss the opportunity with that.
Okay.
I see a lot of people that will be doing Instagram stories, Instagram videos. There's a lot of fitness people that, especially on Instagram, because it's so visual. It's a great platform for your audience to be on, but it often ends there. They don't then have a clear call to action as to what someone wants to do next. And so say you're teaching someone how to do 10 specific, say, squats that are going to build a specific area of the legs. You should have a very clear call to action as to what they should do next. In every step of our marketing, if someone says, what next? You should have a clear answer. And so if someone watches an Instagram story that you put up or an Instagram live, what next? What should they do next? Well, I want you to go give us your email on this page, because I'm going to send you 5 longer videos to walk you through exactly how to do this. Or I'm going to give you a cheat sheet that you can take to the gym, and for the next 8 weeks, you can write down your progress. Or something that goes beyond that little bite of information. So then if someone's smart enough to get them onto an email list, because you want to get them off of platforms that you don't control. You don't control Instagram. The more that you're putting time and money into social media and growing that, yes, it's going to help you, but they make money off of making you pay to reach your audience. And so everyone's not going to see it. And over time, what's going to happen is you're going to have to spend more and more money to reach your own audience. So you really want to get people off of there as soon as possible onto some sort of platform like an email list. Now, people will argue, till the cows come home, whether or not email's dead. Email is still one of the most effective ways to connect with people. There's a lot of great platforms out there like They can also do like micro learning through phone and through text. So finding some way to provide content to say what's next. So then someone, downloads your cheat sheet for legs. They say, wait, this was awesome. What about my arms, my back, my shoulders? What about my sex life? What about my eating habits? What about the rest of my holistic being? Well, we want to then have a next step for them there. And that's where it can either become a paid product, or it can become a call to action to come into our gym. It could be a call to action to come to an e-course or a live webinar. That's where your own personal preference comes in. Where you're good at, I want to see people do that as much as they can, full tilt. And then when that stops working, then start adding things that you don't like. So there's people that maybe they're a little more introverted. They don't want to be on camera. They don't want to do a webinar. Okay, do long form blog posts, do long form e-courses, build out things that you don't have to be in front of the camera. Or maybe there's people that do enjoy being in front of the camera and, for speaking and coming up with ideas, they're great with live Q&A and thinking on their feet. Well, then let's do more Facebook Lives and webinars and things like that before people come into the gym, knowing that the core product that we have is, coming into our facility or joining our e-course or hiring us as an online coach, finding a way to then have that call to action. But then that's still where people often, they get them in. Okay, they signed up for a monthly membership, or, New Year's, they sign up for their annual membership, but they never come in. We want to say what happens right before someone signs up for that, but then also what happens when they outgrow it. We want to always have a next step to help people get to that next level. So the people that are brand new at coming, how do we make sure that they feel good when they come in? How do we make sure that we retain them as customers and we know how long your average customer is? So when someone signs up for a membership, do they come an average of 4 months? Do they come an average of 6 months? How do we add months to that and survey people to say, hey, why are you leaving? What could we do that would have offered more value for you to stay for 6 months instead of, 4 months? And then the people that are coming every day of the week, how do we give them that more kind of elite one-on-one training, get them into groups for the people that are really going big? How do we create a culture even within that culture? That's where successful businesses continue to grow, is when someone can say after each piece of content, what's next? And you can answer it with, let me hand you this next piece of content.
Okay, so I think what you're describing to me, you could describe it as a funnel, a marketing funnel or a sales funnel, where you're getting people in at the top of maybe a video on Facebook, but you're not just putting that out there blindly. You have it set up in such a way that once they watch this video, there's a next step, like download this piece of content or sign up for an email. And in doing that, you're getting people closer and closer to making an actual purchase. Is that a good way of describing it?
Yeah, I would agree with that as a funnel. But I think a traditional marketing funnel is just one specific direction, where you start with the email and then it automatically goes into the video, and then it goes to the e-course, and then it goes to the purchase. I would want to have a little bit more nuance than that. And also I think that especially people that this is maybe a newer way of thinking, they think, oh my gosh, like I don't know how to set all that up. That's just overwhelming. I want people to start with, okay, I'm not on Instagram. What's the first reasonable small step that I can take towards moving towards a funnel? And so maybe it's, I'm going to do at least one Instagram story every day when I'm in the gym. Okay, awesome. And then after you see that kind of going, then what's that next step? Okay, I'm going to then create an email course. So being able to say, what can I do in this next couple of weeks that's going to move my business forward? To me, that's more important than sketching out an entire funnel.
Okay.
Now, throughout that process, we want to be also looking at the numbers to see what's working, to see what posts are getting rated higher, what hashtags we use, the ways we talk about it, what emails they're opening more. And then we want to really talk to people and say, okay, I have 100 people on my email list now. I want to figure out what's next. Can I talk to you for 15 minutes about an e-course that you might be interested in, or a seminar I could do at the gym, or an eating partnership that I could do with a nutritionist, to really pick the brain of your audience and then have them help you create the next step in the funnel for what they want.
Got it. But you're always thinking about this next step. Whether you have it or not, you're designing things so that you eventually will have these next steps to lead you to a sale.
Right. So when we started Practice of the Practice, so that's the website, practiceofthepractice.com. Initially, I knew I didn't want to put a ton of work in to just sell some very small priced item. So I started with offering one-on-one consulting, and it was at about 3 times my counseling rate. And so I knew I'd be getting more, and I knew I needed to have about 4 people on a monthly plan to be able to kind of bring in the income that I wanted. So I started with that. Now, there was tons of people that were below that they're like, I can't afford that. And I didn't have anything to downsell them to. But I knew if I just got a handful of people, then that could basically fund everything else I did. So I had free stuff, and then I had this really elite consulting. So then I built out a email list. And so it was something that people paid, they paid $17 for it. And it was a year-long email where they got a weekly email on how to start and grow a private practice. So when someone signed up, I didn't write all 52 emails. The first person signed up, and I kept writing the email in front of them. So every week I had to write at least 1 or 2 emails. So I might write 4 emails, and then I'd put in my calendar in 4 weeks, make sure you write more emails. And so that first person was getting, these emails written throughout the year. And so then I could sell this thing for $17, which for my time for that first person was a ton of work, but at least I had people then that were coming in. And now that it's written, it's completely passive income.
Yeah.
So then I fill in the gap between a $17 product and a $1,000 a month product, and then start saying, okay, if someone doesn't want to do one-on-one consulting, Maybe they want to do a small group, a mastermind group for me. And, maybe that's a small group, in the gym. If they don't want to do that, well, then we have a membership community. And so that's a monthly membership. And, we've got several hundred people that are in that. If they don't want to do that, then they go back to the $17 thing. And if they don't want to go do that, then I have tons of free stuff that's going to help support them. So over time, you start to fill in those gaps where you have people saying, oh, I just can't do this level. I want to downsell to something else. Or I don't like this level. I want more individual attention. And then you start to add things above it as well.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it brings us on to the next stage of the conversation here, which is around growing an established business or growing a business that's already off the ground. How do you know it's time to invest in growing your business?
Yeah, I think you want to look at opportunities, that are low-hanging fruit in front of you, first and foremost, before you dive into something new. Most entrepreneurs want to add a new offering to their business. They want to add something. They want to have whatever's shiny in front of them. And I would actually encourage them to look and see where people are already kind of paying money. Could you raise your membership rates? Could you talk to your current clients about what they would like in addition? So for example, that might be, okay, you're paying this monthly fee. Would you want to pay for an additional coaching once a month that's on a Saturday? Would you want to have a nutrition plan be part of it? What are the upsells that can be going on with the current people that are there without finding any new clients? And talk to what needs people have. I'm sure if you looked at any of the people you're already working with and just either gave them a survey or said, where do you feel stuck in your workouts? Is it nutrition? Is it at home? Is it coming more often or less often? Like, what do you wish we offered here? I bet if you talked to 20 people, you would get so many ideas of how you could double or triple the business just with the established clients. I would start there. Then I would also look at especially the owner and the highest grossing people that are doing the training. How can you replicate them? And so what often happens is you have, that one trainer that's really good. And then all of a sudden, they want to go start their own gym. And then you lose this great talent. How do you keep them in-house, give them some leadership, help them make money off of training other people their methods, and have them kind of move from just being an individual to being a manager? You want to try to replicate the people that are doing an amazing job and have them teaching other people. So you want to enhance the systems internally. There's this great business concept called lean manufacturing. Came out of Toyota and all these other places where you're looking at all the fat, everything from why do we have people fill out a paper application? There's time to staple and to print and to file. Why don't we switch over to something digital? Where are places that you can cut? Where are things that are repeated that shouldn't be repeated? Where are places that we can have more efficiencies? That's going to increase your bottom line as well. And then after you do those things, which aren't necessarily the fun things, but they boost the bottom line, then you can start to enhance and add extra services, extra locations. You want to have your system locked down so that if you do extra locations or if you add additional services, they can all fall into a system that's pretty locked down.
Yeah. And I think usually when people start to grow a business like that, they end up hiring more people, maybe hiring managers to run that other location. What qualities would you look for in a manager for a business, be it a fitness business or any business?
Yeah, I think you need to first look and see if you want to kind of upgrade someone that's already on your team that you really trust and understands you. That has a benefit for sure because they already get the culture. But sometimes having someone from the outside that can have that new location have a little bit different feel can be good. So you're going to want to weigh that out. Also, especially when you're opening a second location, you want to put at least 2/3 of your time into that other location. And so before you launch that, you need to make sure that your current location, you're spending less and less time there. And it's really on cruise control, whether that's through the managers you have, the systems you have, kind of the internal clients that have buy-in and have a good culture. And you want to bring people in to that new location. They can have it feel like it's a continuation of the other location. And so Costco does actually a great job of this. They opened a new Costco here in Northern Michigan. And that was probably a year ago or so. But they brought in, I would say 2/3 of the people that opened that store were from other Costco locations that they moved up to Northern Michigan for 6 to 12 months. And so they already understood the culture. They jumped in because they know how to run the store. And then all the new people that are joining, they're like already a part of this culture. This store just opened and it feels like a Costco. Well, yeah, because you've got a bunch of Costco people working it already, not brand new people that are green. So you want to take that same approach and have it be that you and the managers are really hands-on at the new location. It's so much easier to set the tone from the beginning as to how you want that second location to be than it is to try to clean up later on or to not have your eyes on that manager. We want to be able to just hand over the keys and hope that someone's going to just run it like we've already set it up, but it's really not going to happen. You need to be hands-on, you need to be watching, you need to be involved as much as you can. And then once you've done that, the third location gets easier. The fourth gets easier. You then have someone that has maybe been your person that starts up each location. So they become your startup person. And then you've got your operational people. That then makes it that you can continue to grow because you've created this system that's easy to replicate.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe one of the byproducts of growth like this on a personal level is your work-life balance can become uneven. What are some of the tips you have for, dealing with pressures of growing a business and all the stresses that involves?
Yeah. So if you set up your business so that you are necessary to it, it's very hard to get yourself out of that business. And so I would say from very early on, when you're moving from that start to growth phase, start to remove yourself from the business intentionally. And how do you do that? You start to set some very clear boundaries. So for example, it was probably 3 summers ago with my 2 businesses. I have Practice the Practice, the consulting business, and then I also have Mental Wellness Counseling, which is a traditional counseling practice. For one summer, I decided to do an experiment where I said every Friday, I'm going to start taking off, and I'm also going to take off Saturday and Sunday. And so unless there's an emergency, don't contact me. I'm not going to be checking email. So then by doing that, have to set up some systems. I can't just kind of blow people off that email me. I have to have systems set up. So I had a virtual assistant that checked my email. She would text me if there was an emergency. And by the end of that summer, I realized I was making more than I had before when I was working 5 days a week. As well, I had 3-day weekends every weekend. So I decided to keep that. So then the next summer, I did the same thing only for Mondays, and exact same thing. Mondays and Fridays, I wanted to have those off. 4-day weekend every week, just work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So set some very clear boundaries around that. Now, what happens is the flaws naturally expose themselves as you pull back. When you stop putting out the fires take off. So then you have to ask yourself, what are the systems that can affect this? So, for example, just this morning, there was a lady that emailed me and said, I thought we had a 10 o'clock pre-consulting call. Like, where are you? And it wasn't in my calendar. And said to my assistant, I just texted her. I said, I need you to look into what happened here and to report back to me, like, not only what happened, but please work with that client and then tell me how we're going to avoid this in the future. So she dug into how it had happened and how the emails happened. So we created a new system so that doesn't happen anymore. I don't want to no-show on people. That's not good. And so when those flaws expose themselves, realize that when you're working with your assistants, when you're working with your staff, you have to have feedback be a constant part of it. It can't be at an annual review. It has to be something that you're going through all the time. And so stepping back, slowing down, to me, that's where your biggest ideas come from. We think about if you're in the shower or if you're on a long drive with the radio off, those are the times that our minds wander and we have these enormous breakthroughs. Steve Jobs, he would do these walking meetings all the time. It de-stresses you. You're out in nature, so you're naturally going to be more composed and think better about things and have bigger ideas. Winston Churchill, he had a non-negotiable afternoon nap. When Timothy Ferriss did Tools of Titans, he found that the majority of CEOs have a daily meditation or a daily habit of meditation. We know that when you slow down, that's when the sparks of innovation come. And that's what separates a mid-level manager from an owner or a visionary, is that they're the ones that can have those breakthroughs and then they're going to set that time apart. So I would actually say that whole work-life balance, you have to have as much time away from the business so that when you are in the business, your vision is very clear and very big.
Yeah. That makes sense. All right. Okay. Well, Joe, some of this stuff has been very interesting. And I think, especially on the scaling front, great food for thought for somebody who's looking to take their business to the next level. So first of all, thank you very much. Before we say goodbye, can you tell us how people can get in touch with you, what you're up to right now, and what sort of people you'd like to talk to?
Yeah, I would say anyone that wants to take their business to the next level, I'd love to connect with them. Our website's practiceofthepractice.com. Even though we primarily focus what we're teaching around private practices, you can just put private health practice in your head, or you can say gym instead of private practice. What we're teaching applies to your market as well. As well, we have almost 400 podcasts now that are all about starting, growing, and scaling your practice and your business. So just search for Practice the Practice in your favorite podcast player. And if you think I'd be a fit to work with you or someone from my team, just reach out to us.
Okay, Joe. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. This podcast is brought to you by Glofox, the boutique fitness management software company. If you want to accelerate growth, work efficiently, and deliver a well-branded boutique customer experience, you can find us at glofox.com.